Good afternoon, Abbotsford residents. I'm Mr. Pelican. I'm running for your Commander-in-Chief. And I made it clear the first thing we're going to do is shit-kick the Abbotsford police. This is why I stood on this world stage for many months of what took place on Abbotsford residents in my life by filthy men that figured uniform will protect us. We'll bury ourselves in the uniform and who the friends we will. This uniform wasn't serving and protecting. It was a dirty bunch of men that used that uniform for personal favors, and that has to stop. That has to stop so we know victims out there are getting justice and we know shit ain't getting covered up and crimes are getting solved. That means a lot of men got to be let go. So I want to give you a little story today. The reason why Abbotsford's in this big shockwave of everything that happened, and let me make it clear to all MLAs, is because of Bruce Banman. Bruce Banman created a shockwave like no other politician by crossing over the floor as from the Liberals where he deserved to be as a Conservative, giving the Conservatives party status and the ride through. They need to now pull together and not internal fight and show that they're with Abbotsford residents. So Bruce Banman, I want to just talk to you about him, is the only politician that out there speaks, does podcasts and speaks for himself, and I feel the ripple effects running for the elections and what's taking place, and I see it. Residents are saying that they're even tired of Suk Mangill now, and I was like, well, you know, he took Ed out. You could never have Ed and Mike. They agreed, but they said Suk just runs around doing pictures and podcasts of pictures of people of here I showed up there, I showed up here, I showed up there, I showed up there, and they're saying he's not doing any legwork. We want to see him with the residents and addressing issues. This is true. This is true. There's lots in Abbotsford to address. There's the Mackenzie Bog that people got deadly sick. He needs to go over there and address it, but Brad Viss will tell him, Suk, you can't speak about that. There's many farms on ag land that's been made hundreds of thousands and was licensed by Ross Siemens and Dave Sadu and all these friends here to create an industry on ag land and not pay high taxes where other farmers had to shut down. I remember that Bruce Banman did a thing in Cloverdale for a company called Dreadworks. It had to go out at the Cloverdale Fairgrounds and purchase and do a setup there because it couldn't operate on ag land. And it had to get permits. But many farms went and made millions and millions of dollars and then made money to go buy land. And it was given, let me tell you, it was given a license by this dirty mayor to operate, have illegal people on ag land, have no traffic control or nothing, and that meant there was something dirty going through the back doors, where you can't even get a dump truck to park on your street without Magna and them going after him. So that we know was all illegally, because it should have been shut down. And you'll probably see Ross. I need to take a picture there. Henry said if I go over there and take a picture, I might get some South Asian votes. So Bruce Banman is the only politician that you can see podcast, and he's out on Berry Farms, he's out there, he taxed David Eby, but he taxed the issues for Abbotsford residents. Today I want to talk to you about something, transparency. Remember old Henry Brown, transparency, 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 transparency. Henry Brown went in our city to take advantage of that chair for his gain, his economical gain with his family, putting his son in front, Irwin Brown, I showed you them all. But to lift job sites to his friends, not to his friends, but some of his partners, Ron Funk of Diverse. Ron Funk, who was tied to Devin Roy, who is Ed's son-in-law, and owns Pacific Peak Homes, and they were going to merge. Henry was taking advantage, but he was strapping Abbotsford taxpayers. It was already coming off the rails when Henry was trying to scandal Bruce stop him. Darren Braun showed, and he was bragging and boasting about how smart his dad was. Everybody under his dad's thumb. If the newspaper, he showed when Henry said to Tyler Olson, you write one bloody thing about me, Tyler Olson, I'll put you on your belly. He'll pull its money, pull its help from the city, and it'll be on its belly. And Henry believed between Ed and Mike, he had it all covered. And we could see Ed Fast was let go when Pierre Poilievre found out that Ed was covering attempted murder, threats on residents, Henry scamming in the city, Diverse and everything. Pierre Poilievre didn't know how to address it because he would be involved in a scandal and the Liberals would railroad him because this is a Conservative riding. So he benched Ed and told Ed, pack your shit, you're out. And we could see that. They didn't even throw a party. And you could see that Andrew Scheer, Stephen Harper never thanked Ed for all the years or nothing because of the dirty stuff that he was doing in this city. He took advantage of a position, and maybe Ed back then when he first started out was okay, but then lost touch of what he was doing. And then we saw Mike DeYoung, the illegal party with George Perry on Bell Road. We saw all this. We saw the 5 leaders pulled together where people went to jail. And we saw Kevin Falcon find out. I talked to Kevin Falcon directly, and Kevin Falcon kicked him. I believe Mike would probably go through the back doors, try to reactivate the old Liberals, and try to get it back to status if he can, get Kevin Falcon out of the way, drop the BC United name because Mike believes he's got a chance. These men were elected to office to make sure that nobody, as taxpayers or residents, were being treated or abused for people's greed. They didn't. They went and collaborated together on a massive scam. When Darren Braun, Henry's own son, opened his mouth, Abbotsford residents and me went to the best men that know about these things and greed, the RCMP mission. We owe, and we must say every day, how thankful we are to the mission men and women that stood up to help over our own shithole crap company that was licking Henry's backside. Henry went around, the Abbotsford police are the best in the world, the best in the world. A bunch of men that abused uniform, and nobody knows how much crime they were involved. Figured up in the top of the Abbotsford police, they were untouchable. So I want to tell you about untouchable things. When Colin Watts' guys threatened me, it's your responsibility to take the action and assure the residents. Watts didn't do that. That's why I want Watts gone. You got to address these issues, especially when I'm on world YouTube and I'm attacking your company. Your company can't perform. You're looking maybe for David Eby or somebody to say, oh, you know, the police can't do any work. We need this stopped. Maybe crash all the YouTube sites of Mr. Pelican. Please stop it. That's not the way to stop it. You're in organized crime. The way to stop it is now investigations, courts, and jail sentence, and then we get we get honest and go, hey, you do that, you're going to go to jail. And we saw these behaviors, and thanks to the RCMP, they weren't conspiracy, they were video filmed. Henry's hit and run, Mike Sear covering it, the task force's threat, the attack on Mogil. This is the wisdom and knowledge of the RCMP. Log it all. That day it happened. Video film it, have dignitaries to witness it. The attack on me constantly with the Abbotsford police to get me out of the election to load Ross, because you know how many millions we were going to get? Look at, we got 85 million cost overrun for our shit old police department and brand new trucks. They had no idea managing. They had none. I took my experience in and everybody I knew from Wall and everybody and said, we're going to come in and we're going to stop this scam. We're going to give the Abbotsford City, especially when I saw the Cooper Farm, Henry changing the dockets, putting it on the dockets, council in Henry's house, Daddy, I voted you, Dave Lowens. So we got ethical, moral people. We got Mark Workendine, that's a lawyer. Kelly Shaw, you never see her face. You don't see Dave Sidhu. You don't see Simon Gibson after Pierre Poilievre, Chudpolin, and Mike DeYoung. I couldn't believe that thing. Nobody can get over that as Simon. And these are ethical people that have a duty and they're bound by the courts. And went and broke these duties and went and did this. I don't know how they ever figured they were going to cover it when Darren Brown told. Darren Brown went in here as economic, left and set himself a lucrative business to do deals, and the city bureaucrats are going to award him every job, and you can go through Abbotsford and you can look at all the signs, blue sky, blue sky, blue sky. Eric Nivel, when he called Henry Brown out, Nivel was the start of it. Henry took him up in this stage, up in the city on the 6th floor, 5th floor here, and the city invited me. And Henry blasted him. How you mentioned that golf course? Because Nivel knew as a CPA accountant, you're not allowed to do it. So let's talk about transparency. I showed you Archway Community Services, Rob San Diego, and how he went and used his wife to load the board at Community Tash, then take the board over and get that money. Henry was lobbying, and I showed you the Red Line Hotel. I got it for Rob San Diego before Pam leaked it. I showed you it all. It was a collaborating team, and they were all under Henry's thumb. Pam didn't even get to announce it for the NDP, and Henry was rubbing out Rob San Diego. I showed you Rob San Diego get it. I showed you what Andy Sidhu, owning the Capriccio newspaper, what Dave Sidhu did at UFV and knew it was coming from Darren Brown. The RCMP said, log it, witness it, set up that you're running the election, let nobody know. and watched Andy Sidhu block. Andy Sidhu said my shithole son Dave Sidhu did that. If Dave Sidhu did that and he's a city council, you should call him out. And you should have called him out when he was elected city council wearing the BC United for chairs. It wasn't. Henry believed that he could use Dave Sidhu to get the votes for Ross Siemens. I believe Dave Sidhu pulled away from Ross. The buddy pal system's gone. You never see Dave with Ross. You only see Dave Lowens. You never see Dave Sidhu. So thanks for all your hard work, Dave Sidhu, but I don't want to recognize you. You saw Mike DeYoung use Dave Sidhu, and then they wouldn't let Dave Sidhu endorse him. Everybody knew, and I knew it coming in, Dave Sidhu's life's going to be wrecked. He's going to wreck his life. They're using him. Dave was better off to stand on his own, and he could have pulled it through himself. He didn't. They convinced him, Dave, you need us, and we need you. They used you, and now he wrecked his life, and he wrecked his dad, and his dad made that clear. Transparency. So I showed you that Archway Community Services, under me, it's gone. It's going to get whapped out so freaking fast, and we're going to go after Rob Santiago for that flood money, and we're going to go after it for its revenue that it made. We showed you about the food bank when it was trying to lobby on to the Premier to get more money. The food bank shelves are empty. Why would you even make a statement? And 60 jobs are gone. High elite people, that was half of your staff. 90% of them were in here by a labor-ready company that you were hired, that was a contractor, your own people showed me. You didn't take out of the money you made, out of the 46 million and then the 4 million profit, and fill the food bank shelf. You gave yourself raises, staff raises, and everything. You went over to Community Cash, put your wife and your board to try to take that over. When I announced it, his wife quit and retired. That's not the way you do it. You got to go after her for all the money that she was coercing and collaborating with Community Cash to help Rob Santiago of Archway to bankrupt the other one. Darren Brown showed me that Archway was going to be the center of the non-profit world. It was going to get money from the federal and provincial government, hundreds of billions, and it would dispatch it out. That would be totally wrong for everybody, because there would be no help for the vulnerable at all. They used the homeless at every situation to beg for infrastructure from the province so they could manage it. Keep the homeless weak, and they never contribute to help the homeless at all. We saw the Abbotsford Mayor Ross Siemens, when Bruce was involved in the chicken manure scandal. We knew that happened, and we knew that Bruce called it out. Bruce stood up, owned it, and said, no, people had to answer for what they did behind my back. We saw Ross Siemens go and load all these rocks down on Gladys Avenue on taxpayers' dollars to help Henry for Ron Funke Diverse. We saw the Abbotsford police chief stand there like he's been kicked in the throat. The uniform and badge will say me, here's Colin Watts, go to our courts and be humiliated like a jackass, wasting money. I got a big lawyer. This guy's so big, he's fighting the homeless. This guy's got injunctions coming out of his ass. Rather than stand up and say, Henry Brown and Ross Siemens and his scammers went and put rocks all down Gladys Avenue on taxpayers' dollars, on millions and millions and millions of dollars, to move the homeless, to help them at Ron Funke Diverse, because you couldn't get, and you would get activists involved, and put them in front of my police station and made me look like a jackass and everything. The police chief couldn't do it, but I'm going to rip the taxpayers off, and I'm going to blame the homeless. He couldn't come in here. And so he figured, if I come from Victoria and I'm going to come in here, it looks like he was handpicked like Peter Speranese. I showed you, and when Rob Santiago lost his money from Ross, his staff and him had a little tiff. And his staff told on the tourism board, Alex Mitchell, the Chamber of Commerce, I fight for business, setting up a tourism board behind everybody's back that doesn't foreclose its financials of how much it makes under the city budget, because that's our friends. We're going to look after Alex. She promoted me through the whole election. Remember, Alex promoted me through the whole election. Unethical. She should be gone from the chamber and never allowed to see public duty again. A democratic process is them boards have to be elected by the general public. They didn't. They were appointed. You know I was coming forward, so let me tell you what was coming. The Economic Development Board, an office, knew that I'm coming after them. They knew it's the next one. They left. She fled to Surrey. Figured that now I'm getting a better job in Surrey. That will be my excuse. We moved on. Just like Mike Sir, I quit. I quit after Henry's stuff. They left. Let me tell you why they left. The Economic Development Officer Board, the city, aligned me. You know I'm coming for the mayorship. Aligned me that They're a self-appointed board within the city. There's no transparency, none of that shit with Henry. They're appointed by these punks inside the city, Dave Lowens and all these. There's no dialogue to the general public and taxpayers of how much money they have spent, up to $2 million, the city told me, $2 to $3 million in behind the scenes. There's no transparency of how much, as the economic development officer, have you brought to Abbotsford and say that, look, this is what I've done. So I'll give you an example. You can look at Chilliwack and you can look at Molson, you can look at all them jobs, you can say that economic development officer is creating revenue for the taxpayers. Here it didn't. It didn't. It found a way to scam, set up a budget within and do it. That is why when I learned Ross was getting that new building for $14 million behind everybody's back, it said the city's purchasing, it's a scam. Ross couldn't manage nothing. He's a gas station boy that knows that these acts are illegal, they're morally wrong, and they're behind the taxpayers' back, and they need the RCMP to investigate. The tourism board needs to be investigated of how much money it sucked out, how many lavish trips did it have. Did half your paychecks go to pay Mike de Jong's flight to Ottawa when he was going to talk to Pierre Poilievre because you're all buddies? And were you scamming Abbotsford taxpayers on all this? We knew from Darren Brown how deep this rabbit hole went and who was in it, and all we had to do is put a lid on it so they couldn't jump out. And eventually they all die in there and you can count the carcasses. But let me explain. All the MLAs and MPs, and we got a city lawyer and a city manager that knows transparency and taxpayers' money have to be at the highest level. And you got an economic development officer and its board that doesn't accountability to how much money it gets on taxpayers and not foreclosed to the public, and how much these useless people have been not bringing into Abbotsford taxpayers. Under me, this is gone. Under me, it's gone. It's going to be an open, democratic process that everybody puts their name forward and say, this is what I can do for my city. You're going to get land that the city owns, and I'm going to tell you to go create revenue for Abbotsford taxpayers, and we're going to lower them taxes, and we're going to drive them down. This is what I studied and knew. This is why when I tell you, when I'm coming in as mayor, I can cut your taxes so fast. I can tell you the infrastructure that Henry and Ross Siemens been blowing smoke about these new condos and buildings is all wrong. This housing building is all shit. Henry's garbage. His little toys got to go. We have no infrastructure for Abbotsford sewer, emission pumps in it, our water or nothing. And now we're going to look at Abbotsford taxpayers and increase your taxes to $500 to $700 to put this elaborate system in with Henry Brown's friends. This is not going to happen. This is not going to happen. This is not going to happen. This wouldn't happen under George Ferguson, and I don't think it would happen under Bruce Banner. And it's not going to happen. But what's going to happen under my mayorship, and guaranteed what's going to happen, is forensic audit, accountability, jail sentences, and a massive. I'm going to make sure people like Peter Sparanese can't just quit and flee, because he knew the tourism board's scamming and it's got to be foreclosed to the general public, and he knew the economic development officers board is doing the same, and he knew, and so did the city lawyer, and he knew that if we just hide it within the city budget. Yeah. So I got to ask Peter Sparanese on my podcast, because I invite you every day, are you getting a kickback? Is the city lawyer getting a kickback? Is Ross Siemens getting a kickback? Is Dave Lowens getting a kickback? Because who's getting a kickback? Because I can tell you, in the real world where you work, and I just made it clear, I worked for Wall Financial, Peter Wall. I told you Bruno Wall. I told you Mike Dakota. I told you Mike taught me so much. You get caught hiding these things, you get charged, and you got to pay it all back. Remember Bob Rich? When that lady didn't turn her league up at the police department, he made her pay it all back. When the women take a little bit, they get called out and paid. Now the women turn the odds. They want these disgusting, filthy men that set up this establishment done. And I want to make this clear to all my politician friends. I want to make it clear to everybody. The Mission RCMP are tremendous men, man to man, and didn't look away from this, and knew that this involved massive criminal ring of stealing money. Henry's job went into this city to enrich himself and take Abbotsford taxpayers. Henry used muscle. This is why I made it clear. The Abbotsford police have to and must be gone. You cannot steal from Abbotsford taxpayers. You cannot block somebody when somebody tells you that this is unethical. You imagine a school board all appointed by the mayor and nobody knows how much money. You need to be held accountable. And I want Henry Brown to sit in his thing and every one of his friends phone him Ed fast, go, hey, did you see Mr. Pelican's podcast, Henry? Transparency. Remember transparency, Henry? Why ain't you talking about transparency, Henry? Oh, Henry, why ain't you talking about transparency? Henry Brown got in his car, tried to end my life, used his political friends and used our man in uniform to pull one of the biggest cahoots in Abbotsford's history off and involved millions and millions of dollars into a criminal ring that has to be called out by everybody. It has to have elite Abbotsford police gone. So let me tell you about Abbotsford Police. I told you this great man, Dick Kern, I spoke highly of him. Abbotsford Police, guys in the bottom, came to me, and by gosh, this is how it works, because the RCMP said, stay with it. Eventually evidence comes forward. They said, Mr. Pelican, we have a video film from you we shot on our phones. I said, you do? He said, yeah, way back when. It might be interested for you to have. I said, yeah. Not thinking it's going to go against their own company. But they want to do what's right for their community because they know the way to face this and clean the company is face it head on, call everybody out, fire a charge, and we can rebuild and get a company that's accountable. I said, what's the video? Well, let me tell you what the video is. I'm going to run it for you in the next day or so. It's with professional people right now, and then I'll have it back in my hands. It's when Abbotsford residents went in front of the Abbotsford Police in the middle of the winter to protest, families and everybody, on Killian Olenoff threatening for Henry Braun. And I said, so how's that help me? I said, Mr. Pelican, them videos outline that you're asking for Mike Seard now because Henry owns some of them officers. And somebody, when this happens, and an officer did what Olenoff did in these cameras, we have a system in the Abbotsford Police, and there's a Safety Standards Act. They have to get involved and investigate. Then they call the Police Complaints Commission. Somebody told the Safety Standards Act to stand down, especially when you were right in front of the door. And they turned that video over to me. That video is going to be helpful for the general public. It's going to be helpful for law enforcement, and it's going to help to show that Mike Seard was covering for Henry Brown. And it's going to show that Abbotsford Police that have a sworn duty, that know they're not supposed to listen to their boss when they're covering up organized crime, did it. And it's going to show that the Safety Standards Act needs to be dragged out of the Abbotsford front of the police building and given the biggest kick up its asshole and said, I don't care about your check, I don't care about your union, I don't care about your severance pay, you covered up organized crime, they were right here, and what should have took place, and initially should have took place right now, as first responders, is talk to them witnesses and have Olenoff in, and you didn't do it, and you're let go. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm live here in beautiful Abbotsford, British Columbia, City Hall.